FFX, Fuel Factor X, is an amazing product. Why do I say it's amazing? It's the best in it of its kind. It's the top of the range fuel treatment globally. We're not saying this because we are selling FFX. We're saying it because it's a fact. It is the best, the top range fuel treatment in the world today. Every driver, every fleet manager, every logistics manager, every operator of heavy machinery, every asset manager in hospitals and factories and all that, they need this product. Why? Because number one, it gives them efficiency in their operations. It saves them money. Number two, it saves them money. Number three, it helps them meet their targets as far as emission reduction is concerned. Everybody is concerned about carbon emissions. Everybody is concerned about the planet and how we are treating the planet. So this is part of a solution. This is part of their corporate solution in achieving their corporate targets, if that is your target market. So everybody needs this product. It's a comprehensive fuel treatment. No other treatment, no other additive in the fuel industry globally does what FFX does. We need to understand that. We need to put that in our minds. We know we have the top of the range product in the market. But having said that, for example, where I live in Kenya today, people don't know about it. So we have to go out there and tell people about it. I'll tell you something. You'll be surprised how, when you mention just the saving, fuel economy, when you mention that to a driver or to a transport manager or a logistics manager somewhere, immediately their interest gets piqued. They want to know more about the product. And so we have to tell them about it. We have to tell them about the product, what it can do for their businesses and what it can do for their equipment and for themselves. So once we know what the product can do, then we must be able to tell them how to use it properly. I know this is one of the challenges we have in the market today. We need to be able to tell the users of the product how to use it properly. And I know we talked about this last week on a call. And we realized when we don't pass on the right information to our customers or our prospects, then we don't get it right. They'll not get the right results. One of the things we have to bear in mind is that the user, when they're using the product for the first time, the second time, and possibly the third time, they have to double dose the product into their fuel. What is double dosing? The recommended ratio for usage of the product is 10 ml to 80 liters of fuel. I know in Africa we use liters and mLs, not ounces and gallons. So 10 ml for 80 liters of fuel. That is the recommended ratio for normal usage. However, for the first to second to the third usage of the product, they need to double dose. So that means that instead of using 10 ml for 80 liters of fuel, they should use 10 ml for 40 liters of fuel. You can look at it in a different way. Instead of using 10 ml for 80 liters of fuel, they use 20 ml for 80 liters of fuel. You need to figure it out clearly so that you're able to communicate it to your customer or to your user very well and very clearly. One of the questions you may be asked is, why do I need to double dose for the first 3 uses of FFX in my car? It's simply because at that point, FFX is doing double duty. It's doing double the work that it would normally do. So first of all, it will begin to clean the engine. The engines build up carbon over time. As you use your car, as you use a generator, as you use the, whatever farm equipment you're using that needs fuel, carbon builds up over time, rust builds up over time. And one of the things that FFX needs to do is to clean that out of the engine so that your engine is performing optimally. So that's the first thing it needs to do. Number two, it needs to also clean up the fuel by upgrading it and giving it a higher octane rating. So FFX is working on the engine and the fuel for the first 3 times that you use the product. It's very important to explain it to the customer, then they understand why they need to double dose for the first few times. Now, having done that, when the customer has used it 3 times on a double dose, then they can now revert to the recommended ratio, the single dose usage of 10 ml to 80 liters of fuel. And I can assure you, no doubt about it, if the customer follows this recommended way of using it, they will get to the results. The results are guaranteed if the product is used properly. It's important that we do this. If we don't do this properly, we run the risk of spoiling the name of the product in the market. Because if somebody doesn't use it properly, they will start saying, oh, this product doesn't work. They didn't get the results that you promised them. But if they use it and they understand that they need to double dose the first 3 times, they will get the results that they need. They will begin to experience the fuel economy. They will begin to experience the improved performance of the engine. They'll begin to experience reduced carbon emissions from their vehicles and equipment. So that's very, very important. The other thing I wanted to mention about the usage of FFX is you need to manage the expectation of the customer. You need to inform the customer of what they can expect when they use the product. Why? Simply because the vehicles that are on the road are different. Cars are different, usage is different, the age is different, the condition of the engines of the vehicles are different. So there is no way a customer who has a car that's 1 year old and it's probably just used to run between work and home, maybe they're doing less than 10 kilometers a day, that car will have different results from a car that's being used heavily on a day-to-day basis. The engines are different. Why? Because they experience different, they're used differently by the owners. So we have different scenarios. The engineers, the R&D have come up with the scenarios that users can expect as they use FFX for the first few times. So every Thursday when we have the opportunity call, Dale is very good at telling us about the 7-tank challenge. And I know for many of us, we probably don't really focus there. We are not really getting that information, but we need to. We need to understand what it is. We need to. Why? Because this is the information that we need to pass on to our customers when they begin using FFX. Now, so I just want to highlight these 4 scenarios. What are the 4 things that a customer should expect from FFX when they begin to use FFX? So number 1, the first category of results that could happen in any particular case is they experience immediate fuel economy. Now, this is really the ideal situation. This is the ideal result that we are all looking for, but it will not happen to everybody. It does happen to about 38% of the cases. 38% of the times that of the customers that begin to use FFX will experience this. They begin to use it, double dose from the beginning to the 3rd usage, and they will begin to see fuel economy. They'll begin to see better usage of the fuel over time. And this will keep rising to an optimal level. So that means this particular category of customers, they'll begin to save right from the word go. They'll begin to use less fuel than they normally use on a particular trip. So they begin to see the savings immediately. That's the first category of customers. Then we have a second category of customers, or a second kind of result that customers can expect. There are customers who will begin to use FFX. They will double dose as usual. For the first 2 or 3 usages, they will not see any change in their fuel economy. Now, this might surprise some of the customers, but it is one of the scenarios that can be expected. The fuel economy may not change for the first 2 to 3 usages, but eventually around the 4th usage, it begins to pick up. the vehicle begins to record an increase in fuel economy. And this will continue rising until it gets once again to the optimal level. So that's the second category of results that you can expect from customers. So the reason why we are going through this is so that when a customer tells you, this is what I experienced, they will remember, yeah, Matt told me this might happen in my vehicle, depending on the condition of my vehicle. Now, the third category of results that you can expect is that customer who begins to use FFX, the first double dose, the second double dose, and during that period, the fuel economy actually goes down. It actually goes down. And probably around the third to the fourth usage of FFX, it begins to pick up. Now, this happens with vehicles that have a heavy, they have a lot of carbon built up within the engine of the vehicle. So FFX is actually doing the work of cleaning up the carbon deposits, cleaning up the engine, getting rid of them. And therefore, what would have been translated into fuel economy is going into cleaning up the engine. So this is the third category. Fuel economy may go down, and Dale has told us this happened in his car. I also have a friend over the December holidays. This is exactly what happened to him. He looked at his numbers, and he called me and said, Matt, this is not working. I'm losing. I'm spending a lot of money on fuel right now. And I told him, he's called Dennis. I told him, Dennis, this was bound to happen. And for me, this was a big lesson because I didn't expect this to happen. And that is when I realized I need to understand what could happen in a particular case. So I talked to him because he's a close friend. He trusts me. We've been friends for about 15 years now. He said, okay, Matt, what do you think I should do? I said, use it a second time and a third time, And I told him, I assure you, by the time you get to the fourth usage, you begin to see your kilometers per liter rising once again. And it will keep rising from that point on until you get to an optimal level. So this is the third category of customers or the third kind of result that we will find with our customers. So there is that scenario as well. Then we have a fourth scenario. This is a vehicle that when you begin to use FFX, it will immediately record an increased fuel economy. It will just rise up. The numbers will be good, will look good for the first and probably the second usage of FFX. And then surprisingly, it will dip. It will go down again for the third and probably even the fourth usage of FFX, and then it will begin to rise. So it's a graph that goes up, then goes down, and then rises again and continues to rise to the optimal. So this is a scenario where the vehicle was so clogged up with, all the impurities, the carbon, the rust, and because FFX took time, or it needs time to soften up that, those deposits within the engine, the car enjoyed the immediate, fuel economy, because the fuel that it was using, the car was able to take advantage of the improved fuel in the vehicle at the beginning. Meanwhile, the deposits in the car, the carbon deposits and the rust and all that, was still getting softened up. And then eventually, when they begin to come out, FFX is working within the engine. So what was experienced as fuel economy at the beginning is no longer being experienced, but will only go on for one usage or two usages. And then once again, the fuel economy begins to be realized. So this is information that we need to have. Now, the good news is this: it doesn't matter what scenario your customer faces or experiences for the first to the third usages of FFX. What matters is that eventually the fuel economy will begin to rise. because most customers are concerned about, the immediate saving. That's what they want to see. So regardless of the scenario, whether it's the first, the second, the third, or the fourth scenario, the fuel economy will eventually be realized. And all these scenarios end up at the same point. They get to an optimal point where the car is performing super well. It's behaving very well. The horsepower is being experienced. The engine is burning fuel the way it should. So this is an assurance that we have. And most customers want that, magic bullet, put it in and immediately start seeing fuel economy. We need to educate our customers that it may not happen that way in their vehicle. Give them the 4 scenarios, let them understand what they mean, and eventually the customer will actually build trust with you. Why? Because you told him the truth. You informed him about what could happen. And when they experience it, they go like, yes, he told me this might happen. I remember one time Sue sharing with us the experience of somebody in Uganda. And this is something else we also need to understand. And this person used FFX, and for about 3 hours of the journey, there's a lot of black smoke coming out of the exhaust. And they were concerned, what's happening with my car? And one of the things that we got to learn from that experience is that all this stuff that needs to come out of the vehicle has to come out through somewhere. It's only the exhaust. That is where it comes out of, okay? So when they experience some smoke, some black smoke coming out of the exhaust, it could happen. And when it does, it actually clears up within a very short time. This particular case, they said within 3 hours, it had cleared up, and now the engine was performing extremely well. And that is because all that stuff that needs to come out comes out through the exhaust pipe. There's no other outlet that it can come out of. So guys, I just wanted to mention those scenarios about what customers should expect, what we should tell our customers. And you'll notice that if you give them this information, they get comfortable, they realize you know what you're talking about, and they begin to trust you. And they know, okay, let's do a second fill up, let's do a third fill up. And we are expecting to see these results eventually.